Hello and welcome to this edition of Consciousness Raising Online. Good to see you as always, Clyde. And I'm going to jump right into this session because it's quite a bit of information, but it's not a hard one today. It's not a head knocker. We're going to do some time traveling into the future. Um, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us all the way up to 2100. Now that might seem like a long time away, because this is 2018 when this is being done. So 2100, way off in the future, right? But consider this: um, my mother, if she were alive, would be 84 this year. I have a student, and those of you all who know me know where I teach. But I have a student who is 82. Okay, and she's rocking and rolling with the students and everything. Um, and so 2100 is 82 years away. So it's really not that far. But it's some things I think if we should consider now, because we may be able to do some things to uh, help our descendants in that future. Because I'm thinking about it, okay, 82 years is generally considered to be 3 to 4 generations. See, a generation is like 20 to 25 years. Okay. If we see it as 25 years, then we're talking about three and a half generations. If we see it as 20 years, we're talking about 4 generations. So if you have children now, then you're talking about your great grandchildren being really born around then, or at least maybe making maturity. But your grandchildren today maybe still alive. Okay, so it's some things I think we need to check out. For an example, consider this: the population in Africa, in the continent of Africa, is growing at a much faster rate than the rest of the world. Think about that. See, we don't normally get this kind of thinking. We don't get this kind of information being put out there. Africa's population is growing at a much faster rate than the whole rest of the world. Roughly today, 1 out of every 7 people in the world are from Africa. Roughly 1 out of every 7. Okay? But by the year 2100, it'll be either uh, 1 in 3 to 1 in 2. Think about that. In just 3 to 4 generations, 1 in 3 people on the planet will be from Africa. Might even be closer to 1 out of every 2. In other words, half the world's population will be from Africa. Yeah. In contrast, Europe's population is projected to fall steadily over the same period, going from 742 million today down to about 650 million. And that's because of things like they've got a slow growth rate. Their birth rates are really bad. In fact, it was a few years ago, I think, that they had reached that even point that the same number of people were dying were being born. I think they call it a zero birth rate or something. Um, Asia is also expected to shrink, um, ending up more or less with a population that's the same as today. Now, overall, the population of the world is expected to grow to 11 billion people over the next 82 years. And that cities will get bigger too, especially in Africa. Now, where are we at today? Well, supposedly the world population today is like 7.6 billion. So they say over the next 80 years, it's going to grow to 11 billion. What's that? Three and a half, 10 and a half, about 3.5, 4 billion people. By 2050, it's supposed to be at 8.3 billion. And that's also the time period that white folks have been afraid of. It turns out for certain areas, it's like here in the United States, they say, well, that's the point where white people will become a minority. But let's look at it from this perspective before I go to some other specific stuff. The composition of the world population, and this is really interesting how they do this. Today, you notice something about this graph? They put Africa and Asia together. Okay? And they say that Africa and Asia together is 75% of the world population. Europe is sitting there at a little tiny 10, right? Latin America and the Caribbean, which is interesting. Latin America and the Caribbean, they put it 9%. And then, this is why it's interesting, North America, they have it 5%. Well, why this is deep is that the Caribbean, part of the Caribbean is considered part of North America. Yeah. But they decided to throw the Caribbean in with Latin America. And then they give North America what something I say all the time is it's actually less, the United States is less than 5% of the world's population. Okay? Then they got Oceania over there with 1% something. Now, why this is important to understand is why did they throw Africa and Asia there together? Why do they not separate out Africa and Asia? Why didn't they split them up? See, this is a graph that's sometimes used to scare folks, especially white folks. Say, "Ooh, Asia and Africa." Remember, India is part of Asia. Pakistan is considered Asian. There's part of Europe, what we think of as Europe. Part of that is Asia. But if you want to give this perception and scare folks, white folks, look at that. Europe is only 10%. And if you take Europe and North America, which is considered the West, right? Put them together, you got 15%. Ooh, not good. So 85% of the rest of the world is, oh, might be considered black and brown. Yeah, that's scary for them, ain't it? Uh, now, let's look at the United States for a minute because this gets even deeper. When you look and you see that this is the population according to population pie of the United States, supposedly. And they're saying that today, white non-Latino Americans is 43%. And then African American, 24.8%. Latino, 26.5%. Asian, 3.6%. And other, and I guess that's supposed to include Native Americans and I don't know who else, is 2%. Now, here's a question. African American, does that also include Africans from Africa who may be here as immigrants but are not American citizens? Are they throwing them all in there together? or are they part of other? Yeah, see, how do you just dismiss them? You don't claim them all to be African American. See, this is what happens when you use African American rather than black. See, because if you use black, you would probably have to take some of them Latinos and put them over here. See, this is the trick. Latinos is not a race. See, when white people take white non-Latino and they make themselves 43% of the population, right? They're doing that as a race. When they take African Americans, put them in the pie, they're putting us in there as a race. But when they take Latinos and put them in there, that's an ethnic group. Asian, that's a race. Okay? And other, we don't know what other is, right? So now, if you took Latino and broke it down racially, it would throw a lot more folks over in the African American or the black category, right? Yeah, yeah. So that's not an accurate picture. Uh, Clyde says people of color are a known majority in the world's population. That's right. That's right. And see, that's what they try to keep, their best to keep down, which is why you don't see too many graphs uh, like this one, okay, where even when you slam Asia and Africa together, it's still 75%, and you take North America and Europe and make it 15%, because when you take North America, it's 5%, right? But that's not 5% white people. Remember, some of that 5% is what? Supposedly 25% is black, okay? And then another 25% is Latino. So only less than half of that 5% North American is white. So that even shrinks it even smaller. And we get closer to the number that has been basically the rule for the longest time, which Dr. Welsing talks about so specifically, is that the people who categorize or call themselves or identify themselves as white is 10% or less of the world's population. So that is not going to grow over the next 80 years. And just a final note about this birth rate thing. Um, the high birth rates in Africa ensures that even if there's a decrease in fertility with African people in the coming years, the high number of young Africans means there's going to be a huge population boom in the future. See, that's what really worries them, the Europeans, so much is the idea that it's a more than half of the African population is under 25 years old. More than half. So even though they keep trying to kill us off, they can't kill us off at a fast enough rate to slow down the population growth. So let's look at some of the places that will grow in the future. And I mean, talking about real growth, I mean, super growth. Let's look at some, what they call some mega cities. We'll look at some of those. We'll also look at some of the cities that most of us haven't heard of yet today, but by in 80 years, they're going to be major on the maps. Okay? Um, Places like Conakry, Poon, Abidan, Kano, and Jamania. I'll come back to those. But cities that are mega cities today, like Tokyo, okay? Tokyo has the largest population in the world. As cities go, mega cities, 36 million people are crammed up in Tokyo. But they're going to shrink over the next 80 years because they have a very low birth rate and they have a very strong anti-immigration policies. So they're going to shrink. European cities, by 2100, no European cities will be among the 60 largest cities in the world. Let me say that again. By 2100, no European cities will be among the 60 largest cities in the world. Paris, one of the big cities today, is predicted to be the 67th biggest city in the world. London will be the only other European city in the top 100, and it's going to be at 86. Cities in the United States. New York, currently the sixth largest city in the world, is expected to grow by 55%. But even then, that's still going to leave it down at number 22. Los Angeles just sneaks into the top 40. The only other American cities on the list of the 100 biggest urban centers: Chicago, number 57, Miami, number 89, Philadelphia will be number 91, and Dallas, Texas will be number 100. Now we're talking about where they will be in 2100. But now let's look at some cities that you may not be aware of. Let's look at what will be the big cities and will grow the most over the next 80 years. And so some of your children or grandchildren or even great grandchildren may be in these cities because they may have found it's better for them to move and live in these countries. Conakry, Guinea. You see it there right next to Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Mali, Senegal. It's in West Africa. Today has a population of 11.6 million. It's expected to grow by almost 50% to 17.2 million. It's right there on the coast, so I can see that, especially because it's near the coast, it's got water, and it's not a bad looking city. But to go to 11 million or 17 million, wow. Okay. Now, another place that I had never heard of, to be truthful, is called Pune, Maharashtra state in India. Pune. Maybe it's Pune, but I pronunciation I got was Pune. See, India is crowded anyway, but this area it's in a state in India. It's at 5 million people today. It's supposed to grow 246% to 17 million plus. Whew. Now it's crowded today. And look at all the people right there. But it's expected to grow 246%. Wow. And so, yeah, you might have some of your children's children be in there. Never know. They might go there to work. One of the things we have to understand is how populations shift because of work. And as the work has left the United States over generations, black folks, like others, will find their ways to other countries, especially the ones that have, quote, educations, college educations. They'll be offered stuff out of state, out of the country. Now, here's another one I wasn't familiar with. I'd heard of Jakarta. Jakarta. It is, in fact, Jakarta is in Java in Indonesia. Okay, very modern, really very modern. Indonesia. Um, and I'm trying to think. Java. It seems to me Java might have. Do they have a? Uh, let's see. Look at the map. Okay, there's Jakarta, way down at the bottom there. See how close it is to Singapore. Now Jakarta is expected to grow 88% from 9 million today to over 18 million by 2100. Hmm. Wow. And that don't look, there's Bali. It's over there in the South China Sea, Philippine Sea, the Indian Ocean. I don't know. I ain't going. It's not on my bucket list. Okay. Kigali. Kigali is in Rwanda. Kigali. See it right there? It's the capital. Yeah, it's the capital of Rwanda. And their population today is at 10 million and projected to grow about 74% to 18.3 million by 2100. And while we go through these slides, be sure to check out, look at the cities. See, because again, we tend to get images of African countries that always seems to be, oh, they're just full of disease and poor folks. And they got poverty, but they also have a lot of modern stuff. Look at how big that city is, you know? And you see where it is on the map of Africa. Yeah. All right, here's another one. This is Abuja. Abuja. Abuja, Nigeria. See there, Abuja. Abuja, Nigeria, in West Africa. You see it over there. Another modern, very modern city. Has 6 million people today. Expected to grow 200% to almost 19 million. Mm, wow. And that's a pretty big city, too. Now, Nigeria, we're going to see a couple of places in Nigeria because Nigeria, which first of all has the largest population in all of Africa, and they have a lot of population issues there. Um, and it also shows something else that we're seeing right now. This whole thing about immigration, more and more countries, including the United States, including European cities, European countries, are refusing to allow African immigration. Okay? They're being very selective. Either you got to have something very powerful mentally going on or very powerful in terms of sports, but just coming there just for the heck of it, no. And they will let you drown. Yeah, that's not no joke. Folks claiming they're trying to get out of their countries because of economics is not enough anymore. They say, we don't care about that. So drown. All right. Um, Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo, Brazil. Now, we know, of course, that there's more than twice as many black people in Brazil as it is in the United States. Okay? And one of the things that we still have to learn about is how to understand that they are Americans. They're in South America, but that's America. Okay? See, the United States has usurped the term America because all over the world you say I'm American, they say, oh, you're from the United States. And Brazilians don't say I'm a Brazilian American, they just say I'm Brazilian. but it is a part of the Americas. Now, Sao Paulo, for those who've never been there, it has a huge, huge black population. In fact, I would venture to say that more than half of Sao Paulo's population is black. Brazil's population actually became more than 50% black or Afro Brazilian, as they like to call it, just a few years ago. Because they're still dealing with the idea of race. One of the things that Brazilians would tell you when they come here is that, oh, we don't think of race. Well, they didn't, but there's a huge population in Brazil that does look at race, and they're African. They're dealing with their African heritage. They're descendants of Africa, and they're fighting back against the whitening of the country's history. Now, Sao Paulo is actually expected to lose a little bit of population and stay roughly around the same thing, about 2%, minus 2%. So it's going to stick around at roughly about 19 million people. It's very crowded. It's very crowded. Certain parts of Brazil is super crowded. I'm going to show you something else in a few minutes. Another part of Brazil. Okay? Now, let me make sure I say this correctly. This is Abidjan. Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. This is in West Africa, right on the coast, Cote d'Ivoire. See it there? Abidjan. And it's expected to grow 372%. Woo! That is not a joke. To go from 4 million people to 19, almost 20 million people in the next 80 years. I don't know if this does it for you. Maybe if you put it on full screen or whatever, because I want you to see it, the map close up. I know you can see it somewhat. When you look at that map, you see Abidjan right there on that coast, on the Ivory Coast. That's Cote d'Ivoire. Man, to grow 342%, it's gonna really explode. It's gonna really explode. Okay? And being again right there on the coast, I can see where a lot of folks coming there, and it might be some of us, might be some of our families going there for opportunities. For opportunities. All right. Now here's one. I tell you I was going back to Brazil. Rio de Janeiro. Do you see how close Rio de Janeiro is to Sao Paulo? This is a favela. Favelas are these areas where the housing is so close, so packed in. And this is a carnival afloat. See, for those who've been to Mardi Gras and they think that's big, they ain't seen nothing till they go to Carnival in Rio de Janeiro. There's another shot of a favela. See that? That is unbelievable. All right, and I'm gonna come back again in a minute to the big statue. It's called the Cristo Redeemer, Christ the Redeemer. It's very famous. See that standing up there? And that's part of the mentality there. So now it was settled it was conquered and colonized by the Portuguese, but they got a huge Catholic mix with the African, and that's why Carnival is so huge, and they got lots of naked women, and it's a deep what I want to say. For years, white men would go to Rio because they could have all kinds of sex with black women. This is the truth. They love going to Rio because they have all kind of sex with black women, because they have some very beautiful black women, and as they call them, mixed. Uh, and then a few brothers found out about it, so they would go there. And so you got some brothers say, "Oh, I love me some Rio de Janeiro," and they put down sisters here because they say, "Well, them sisters ain't got attitudes like the sisters here. Their situations are different. They see you like what you are, a tourist." Anyway, but the floats in the carnival, just unbelievable. In fact, when it comes back around again, look at all the people. Now you got the favelas full of people, right? I don't know how I could live in. We think the projects was bad. That's something else. Look real quick at how all these people. Now remember, the carnival goes on for miles, and there's your Jesus just sitting up above everybody. It's a big tourist thing. Yeah, see, the projects were never like this. Never. Um, but Rio is supposed to go 63% growth. It's interesting. Sao Paulo's going to shrink, but Rio's going to grow 63% from 12 million to almost 20 million. All right. Now here's the city we kind of know, the city of the angels, Los Angeles. Now, Los Angeles is expected to grow by over 50%. The rate of growth, okay, from 12.7 million people to 20 million. And Los Angeles is very spread out, because you got Los Angeles County, but then you got Los Angeles, and it's like hugely spread out. And anybody who's ever lived there or has visited there much, they all talk about how it is with the freeways. They say, oh, some of them are just like dead, locked up for hours. It's crazy. Because our rush hours here in Chicago are bad, but it's nothing like LA. You know, I never forget. This is back in the '80s. I was doing a radio show at night, and that's when the freeway, one of the freeways collapsed on top of another part of the freeway. I was like, whoa, that's ugly. And I mean, it collapsed on top of people in cars. Took them days to get to them. Yep. Now, the thing about LA, and I have to throw this out there, is that, yeah, they say it's supposed to grow by 60% over the next 80 years, but that's only if it doesn't break apart and fall into the ocean. Hey, that's a serious consideration. The earthquakes out there in California, not a joke. Look at that freeway. Dang. Yeah, I visited there a few times, and I don't want to live there. Long Beach is out there too. Long Beach. I've been to Long Beach. But yeah, when you look at it, it looks very big and laid out. But I don't want to be out there when it falls apart, when the earthquake hits. Now here's a city. I'm gonna say that. Let's try to say the name right. It is Antananarivo. Antananarivo, Madagascar. And it's kind of funny because when the first movie came out, Madagascar, here's what I found interesting, and you can go check it for yourself. You see where Madagascar is? It's off the coast of Africa. It's considered part of Africa. Okay. The movie Madagascar, cartoon, right? Animated film. All of them been animated films, right? You don't see no people. Ain't no people in the movie. It's all about these animals, right? Now, why did they do that? Why did they make movies and don't put no people in them? and call it Madagascar. Yeah, you can answer that for yourself. But I will tell you this, and I've asked children who have seen all the Madagascar movies, got the DVDs and all of that, right? And I asked them, I said, "Where's Madagascar?" And they say, "It's where Madagascar is." They have no concept that it's part of Africa. I say, "What people live in Madagascar?" And 9 out of 10 times they say, "Oh no, they got people there." See, they just know what they've seen in the movies, which is talking animals. Okay, yeah, that's why that's dangerous. All right. Oh, here's one of my favorite cities to say. This is in Burkina Faso, and it's Ouagadougou. 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 Go ahead and say it. Ouagadougou. Years ago, when I first heard the name, it was somewhere, some white folks was making fun of it, you know, like they used to do with Timbuktu and Tyler too. And I was a young man when I discovered that Timbuktu was and is an actual place in Africa. Well, same thing with Ouagadougou, because where I first heard Ouagadougou is in some movie where they had some white people in blackface playing Africans. Okay, and they kept saying Ouagadougou, Ouagadougou, like it was a language. And then I discovered that it was a city, Ouagadougou. See, now that's something our children today need to know. They might find it somewhere they might want to go live. Although, my problem with Burkina Faso, that's where the brother was that was a revolutionary, and then his number one military man who had been trained by the West killed him and all of the top echelon of that regime. I've done classes on it, so you can go back and look it up. He killed them all. 12 of the top people, including the president, who is younger than 40. But Ouagadougou, it will come back. All right. Another great place, Mozambique or Mozambique, uh, Maputo, Maputo, um, Maputo, Mozambique. It is expected to grow 675%. Yeah, that's huge. Oh, by the way, Ouagadougou is expected to grow 725%, going from 2.5 million to 20 million in the next 80 years. So that's going to explode. Maputo is expected to go from 2.7 million to 21 million people. Look at it, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's big. It's bigger than we think. And right there, look at it, it's surrounded by water. See, that's always good. Or this is usually good. See where it is? Right there on that coast, on that coastline? Yeah, yeah. Room for growth and opportunities. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. And they're going to work through their problems. Now, here's a place that, of course, as some of y'all know, I've been to, and going back, it's on my bucket list if I had a bucket list. But it's Dakar, Senegal. Now I was there. It's been too long. It was 1984 when I went, and I discovered things like black sand on the beaches. It just blew me away. I'd never seen black sand before. Um, but it also blew me away because all of the government officials at that time were young black people because they had been uh, They had gotten their independence from France less than a generation before I went. And so everybody from the president on down, they were all very young. Now that statue there was not there when I was there. I want to go there just to see that. It's huge. It's called the Monument of African Renaissance. And some people have criticized it, usually Westerners, including black Westerners, who say, well, why is it that it's sexist? Because it has the woman behind the man and it has the man being, I don't know what. Y'all know how that works. But I just think it's a magnificent statue, and the symbology of it is very strong. I don't see nothing wrong with it. Oh, I know one of them said, well, it doesn't include the LQBs or whatever. And I said, why they got to include them on that statue? You know, in other words, they should have a gay couple up there and I guess a lesbian couple up there. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that's gorgeous. It's like the one that's over in oh, where's that other statue? Where it's a naked man, African man and woman, and boy, they really went crazy over that, especially because the brother was like a brother. Okay, the Dakar, Senegal is expected to grow 763%. If I had a way to earn a living there, I would go because I loved it there. And I also experienced something I never experienced here. When I went into the establishments, the business establishments there, um, the black people there, the Senegalese, treated me with such respect. And it was obvious that they treated me with that respect because they wanted me to come back. They were appreciative of my business. And they were nonchalant about the French because still a lot of French people go there for vacations and all that stuff, right? And a lot of the French, as this one brother explained to me, he said a lot of the French, they come there, they still expect to be treated like they're the colonists. And so they expect to be treated first in line or ignore black people and wait on them, all of that kind of stuff. And so when I was there, they were still teaching the French how to wait their turn. And that I thought was extraordinary. I wanted to take hundreds of black young people from here and take them over there and let them just be around there for a few weeks just to see what it's like to be treated by black people with respect. Hmm. Yep. Okay. Uh, this is Launda, Angola. Launda, Angola. And if I'm not mistaken, Launda may be the capital of Angola. It's had a lot of issues because they fought for their independence too. It's over in southwest Africa. You see it over here? Yeah, it is the capital, Launda. And Launda is expected to grow almost 400%. Again, it's on the coast. And so that can be very important for them, going from 4.7 million to 23.5 million people. You got a big soccer stadium there too. Yeah, that's a lot of growth. And so, understand where these numbers are coming from. It's not just birth, but also people immigrating to these cities, to these countries, and to these cities. That's why I say some of our great grandchildren may go there. Some of our grandchildren may move there. You know, we don't know. You never know. Ah, New York, New York, the Big Apple. New York, New York, the Big Apple. Now, New York It's one of the few places in the United States that's going to see some serious growth. But we need to understand about New York. It's supposed to grow from 20 million to 30 million. But I'm going to wait for that map to come back around. For those who've never been to New York or never seen New York for real, understand New York is 5 boroughs. And you'll see it on the map. It's like 5 little islands. Okay? And when you see the city itself down here in the corner, the rest is the state is different. Okay? Because you got the 5 boroughs: Manhattan, uh, it'll come up in a minute. Manhattan, the Bronx. Uh, Come on up here, map. Not coming when I wanted to, but it's 5 boroughs, and they all are connected, I think, by bridges. There you are: Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, and Manhattan. Okay, you see how those are just islands. Okay, so New York City can grow. It has room to grow. Maybe not in Manhattan, but when you see Staten Island and the Bronx and Queens and all of those areas, yeah, it's got room to grow. I just wouldn't live there. I definitely wouldn't live in Manhattan. Yeah, ask somebody that's from Manhattan or from New York what they think about Manhattan. Uh-uh. I think some of y'all heard me talk about when I was in Manhattan, staying at a 5-star hotel. Went out for a walk at dusk. Saw this movement down the street, and I said, "Ooh, what is that?" I thought it was a pack of dogs or something. That was a pack of rats. Because you don't have no in Manhattan, especially they don't have no alleys, so they put the trash out in front, and so the rats know what time to come for dinner, and they move in packs. In packs. I hurried up back in that hotel. I didn't leave back out of that hotel till the day I left, and went straight out the door into the car to the airport. Yeah, buddy. Okay. Uh, Nairobi, Kenya. Nairobi, Kenya. Um, Projected growth 613%, from 6.5 million people to 46.5 million people. That's a lot of growth. Now they got 6.5 million people now. You see where Nairobi is, right? Now it's fairly close to the Indian. Well, it's halfway between Lake Victoria and the Indian Ocean, so it's kind of landlocked. The country isn't, but Nairobi is. But they're doing very well apparently. Uh, Now Nairobi, interestingly enough, the name Nairobi comes from the Maasai phrase "Nkare Nairobi." It translates to cool water, and that's because the Nairobi River flows through the city. Isn't that cool? I never knew that about Nairobi. I just know I love the name Nairobi. One of the few places that still got its African names. Maasai, yep. Um, but yeah, like I said, the country has access to the Indian Ocean and Lake Victoria and Victoria Falls, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest in the world. So I can see it's going to grow a lot. Okay. Finally, there is Lagos. Lagos, Nigeria. And Lagos, if I'm not mistaken, it may be the capital. No, Abuja is the capital. Now, it's gonna grow supposedly like 763% right there on the coast, right there on the coast. good place to grow. But from 10.5 million people to 88 million people. And that's because Nigeria is, like I say, the largest population in Africa. And so the people are steadily moving from the outer areas or the rural areas to the big cities. It doesn't have that many big cities, Abuja and Lagos because it's on the coast. But here's the problem in my mind. See, Nigeria has been ravaged by the Western oil companies, and they have just ripped them for oil for years. So the country, remember I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago about the debt. Nigeria's debt is humongous. And so it makes it almost impossible for them to ever get to be uh, profitable as a government and take care of its people, even with all that oil. Because the Western countries, that oil companies have been stealing their oil. Probably for every gallon they pay them for, they take two. They steal two. And they have messed up a lot of the land where they have had oil wells. Oh man, some of the places is outrageous. In the rural areas where people live, the oil companies have messed up the water and the land. I did a presentation some years back where it was a brother, I forget his name. He was leading the fight against these oil companies destroying the land and the water, and they were showing us. Uh, we had photos of the children. They'd have to walk for miles to get to water, and then the water had oil all in it. Yeah, had petrol all in the water. And this is the water they're supposed to use to eat and drink and bathe themselves. I said, this is sick. And they ended up charging that brother and convicting him and executed him. So, look at all them barrels. So now Lagos ends up being the number one country in terms of number one city in terms of growth, both in terms of the percentage of growth and the numbers. But however, I would hope that none of my offspring goes there. I hope they go somewhere else like Ghana, or Senegal, or some of these other cities that we looked at today. And so hopefully, what may happen is that some of our offspring, our descendants, if we educate our children and our grandchildren today about the world, so that they see that there's more to the world than just their block or their city or even just this country. That is how we can spur this expansion that we need. That, excuse me, as well as learning other languages. Um, 2 generations from now, our young people should be bilingual, trilingual. That should be a goal we set, to have our grandchildren, 2 generations from us, be trilingual. We've been going the opposite way, and we can't keep doing that. It'll kill us. And if we remember this, those of us who live in the United States, we are part of a population that is less than 5% of the world's population. And so all of this whole United States, y'all, it could blow up and disappear. And the world would still have 95% of the population to keep rolling. See, the arrogance of the United States, of these white folks, they got us believing that they are kings of the world. And they ain't. The United States, less than 5% of the world's population, controls over 40% of the world's resources and uses 20% of the world's resources. That cannot continue. What does that mean? It means this: less than 5% of the world's population uses 20% of the resources. That means there's a whole lot of folks in the rest of the world that's not able to get their fair share because the United States is using it. And as those countries grow and become more conscious of themselves, they will demand their fair share of the world's resources. And the United States will have to give up some of that. And what will happen is the poor folks will be the ones who suffer because the rich ain't going to give up none of theirs. They have the resource to continue to keep getting more than their fair share. What would it be like if the United States had to go from 20% of the world's resources to 15%? You say, well, that's not a lot. Yes, it is. Think of it like this. What if the middle and lower class in the United States had to live with half of the resources we've been used to? Because that's where that 5% would come from. It ain't coming from the rich, it's coming from the middle class and poor. So we may be forced to look at other places to live, and we should expand our minds, especially when it comes to Africa. And we can't get caught up in believing the lies that put out there that, oh, Africans hate us. There may be some that don't like us. There's some here that don't like us. But to say that the African people as a whole don't like black people in the United States is not true. And anybody who's been to African countries as other than tourists will tell you that's not true. So we got to get past all that foolishness. All right. I close out now, and I appreciate your patience, and hopefully you got something from this. And because it is recorded, it means that you can always come back to it again and again if it's information that you found useful. And hopefully one day we'll look back and say, I'm glad we learned that because my grandchildren, my grandchildren live in such and such place. Okay, I close out with no justice, no peace, no love, KNOW. All right, thank you, Clyde, and everybody else who was there. Close out and take another look at some of these.